Before we do jump into tonight's beginner's guide for Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, I just want to mention that this is actually the 34th beginner's guide I've done. So currently there's 42 characters left in the game, so only another 8 to cover. But if this is the first time you've actually watched one of these videos and you're enjoying it, there's a lot more out there, and I've actually put a link to the full playlist at the end of this video. But for tonight's video, we will be having a look at Daredevil now. To let you know how he plays, we've got various different sections. So we start off with an overview. We'll have a very quick look at his abilities, and we'll also grade his stats as well. We'll then have a more in-depth look at his abilities, and we'll talk about when and how you would actually use them. We'll check out the team bonuses available and optimal ones. We'll have a look at the synergy attacks that are available for him and the characters that he synergizes very well with. I'll then talk about the build that I use on him and the ISO 8 equip on him as well that goes with that build. We'll check out the alternative costume, and then to finish up we'll just do a quick summary. So we'll jump in and we'll start off with the general overview here. So Daredevil then, as you would expect, is a melee character. He's got 3 skills that are combat skills and 1 which is a non-combat skill, but it's actually a really amazing skill and it can really help ramp up his damage numbers, not only for Daredevil but for the whole team if you're playing online as well. But the 3 damage abilities he's got the melee and the piercing tag on them, so you can use strength ISOs, but there's actually a better option, and that's something I'll talk about when we get to the build section. When we look at his hero trait, it's element, so you can add fire, ice or shock. Again, that's something we'll talk about when we get to the build section. His stats are pretty average, but the vast majority in the characters in the game, unless your name is Thor or Thanos, their stats are pretty poor. But his strength is a C, so it will affect all of his abilities. His vitality is an F, so you need to be really careful, he can be pretty damn squishy. Mastery is a C, but that's not relevant at all to his kicks, he doesn't use ethereal or energy. Resilience is a C, durability is a D, and then finally his energy is a B there, so that does help him a little bit in the spamming of the abilities. But that's the overview. Let's have a more in-depth look at his abilities now. The first ability we have here is Vigilante Justice. This is genuinely your opening ability if you're going up against a boss and an elite. However, do make sure you've actually got the heroic camera on and you've locked onto them via the targeting system. That's by clicking the thumbstick, but make sure you do that, because otherwise there's a chance you'll just leap past them. But with this, as long as you're locked on, you jump towards the elite or boss, you do pretty nice damage to their stagger gauge, and you're within range to then start firing off all your other abilities. So in that respect, it's a pretty useful skill. But let's check out the next ability. When you're going up against an elite or a boss, then after you've used Vigilante Justice to open up and get in their face, you want to follow it up with Billy Club Blitz. Now this particular one, you can see the damage rating is up at A, but the stagger is D, so you want to stagger them first using Vigilante Justice. Now this is very similar to Wolverine's move, and quite a few other characters have it as well, and that you can spam it and it does moderate damage, but I find if you just tap it once and then you go through the rotation and you quickly do the final swipe, you do a huge amount of damage. So that's how I would use it. If an elite is stunned or staggered, or a boss is stunned or staggered, just tap it the once, go through the animation, as soon as he's completed it, then go back into the animation again, and you'll really do pretty decent damage with this. The next ability we have here is Blind Fury. So this particular one is an AoE attack, so it's really your trash clearing skill, although if you're surrounded by a group of elites, and with the ISO 8 selection that we're going to talk about later on, if you spam this move and you're in the middle of them, you can really do a huge amount of damage with it. So by and large you will use it for trash, but it can be useful if you're surrounded by elites as well. The final ability we have here is a skill type that up until Morbius came out in the game, Daredevil was actually the only character to have this, and it is a debuff. So when you cast this and it's in a wide area, whereas with Morbius it's just a small cone, but pretty nice area that it covers with Daredevil. The enemy that you target can be trash, can be elites, and can even be bosses. They'll take an additional roughly 20% damage for a whopping 12 seconds, so you really don't have to cast it that often. So We talked about the rotation already, how you would open with Vigilante Justice, but if the elite or boss is within range of Radar Sense, then you'll start off with this, then you'll follow up with Vigilante Justice. Otherwise, what you'll do is you'll use Vigilante Justice to get close to them, fire off Radar Sense, and then start tapping away on Belly Club to absolutely melt the enemies. So that's all his abilities and how to use them. Let's have a look at the team bonuses that are available. Team bonus wise then, Daredevil's part of 6 different teams, so just to quickly cover them, you've got New Avengers, Defenders, Martial Artists, Marble Knights, Team Leaders, and also Agile Fighters. Now the 2 characters that appear in as many as 4 different teams here, so you can get really decent bonuses from them, and thematically they work really nice as well. And I've actually just noticed the background picture I've got here, it's actually these characters, so if you pair them up with Iron Fist and also Elektra, they overlap into 4 different teams, so you can get a nice amount of bonuses there. So that's the team bonuses anyway. Let's now check out the synergies. At the time of recording this video then, Daredevil currently has access to 204 different synergy attacks for all the characters he can pair up with. There's no self synergies here. 204 is a little bit on the lower side, but it's not as bad as some of the characters like Thanos or Scarlet Witch, so you will be able to proc synergy attacks, but you do have to be slightly wary of the characters you're pairing them up with, especially with the fact that only 3 of his abilities have the synergy trait. But the traits in question are Charge, Barrage and Area Assault. When we look at the top 5 characters he synergizes well with, these are ones that can actually add elements as well, and when we talk about the builds that's going to be really important. But you've got Star-Lord, Thor, Crystal, Ghost Rider and Loki, so they all work great for proccing your synergies. The bottom 5 ones you generally want to avoid if you're trying to do synergy damage, it's Morbius, Moon Knight, Hulk, Thanos and then Scarlet Witch once again at the bottom there. So that's all the synergies. Let's check out the build option that is available. When it comes to the build I use for Daredevil, it's all about taking advantage of that shock element. If you actually look at the combination of the mass debuff that you can cast on enemies and the shock element, you can do a huge amount of damage. Now, the ISO that I would use for this, firstly, of course, you need to add the shock ability tribute to the user. You then go for decrease number of attacks to inflict status effect by 34%. Now the reason I use that is that there's nothing in the tooltip that states it, but it seems that some characters have a much easier time at applying the status effects than others, and Daredevil's one that I feel that he struggles a little bit. So when I use this, he will actually paralyse enemies a lot easier, which means you've got an automatic crit, and if you've got the debuff up, then you're going to see some really nice damage numbers. Once you've got the 2 of them, then what you want to apply as well is increase the damage of shock attacks and just ramp your damage way up there, so you really can get some really nice numbers if you do run this setup with them. Now let's check out the alternative costume. So Daredevil then at the moment just has the one alternative costume. It's just a simple recolouring, but by early 2020 the developers have promised that every character will be getting it and proper additional costume. The actual recolouring here is really nice, and it's one that I use the majority of the time when I am playing them. In regards to a costume I would like to see coming in future, and one I think there's a good chance it could be, is the one you can see on screen at the moment. So this is from Daredevil Season 1. This one would be perfect for me. Yes, it is black, so it's a little bit similar to the alternative costume, but I think there is enough to make this different in this particular look. But let me know in the comments below which alternative costume you would like to see, and let's now just finish up with a quick summary. So Daredevil then is a character that, in regards to his play style, there's nothing that really makes him stand out massively, but it's the combination of the fact that he can add the elemental trait, specifically shock, which is a really nice one, alongside his debuff, which will also apply to bosses and elites. When you put the 2 of them together, the potential damage numbers on them you get really can be pretty impressive, and in my mind it does certainly pull him up. He's maybe fell down ever so slightly in the rankings ever since the introduction of Morbius, who has a debuff and also a buff as well, but Daredevil's more of a team player and his debuff will apply to more characters due to the wide AoE that he actually casts it in as well. But that's another beginner's guide done, number 34 as mentioned. 8 more to go until we get the next DLC pack. If you enjoyed the video, as always, take the time to hit the like button, leave a comment below to help drive engagement, and thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all again soon.